Hi everyone, hope you're doing great. My name is Sophie Mathieu and I'm the head of partnership for Propel by MIPIM events. So one new day, one new daily talk. So thank you for being with us today. We are facing big challenges such as climate change, aging, material scarcity, health, and the midlife crisis of capitalism. So black swans, we don't see the challenges coming. Gray swans are fairly visible. Can we create, this is the question of today, can we create swans by redefining our systems, business models, and mindsets, etc.? To talk about that, I'm pleased to welcome Menno Lammers, quartermaster of PropTech for Good. Hello, how are you? We cannot hear you. You're on mute.
Hello.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice to see you, and good to having me here.
Great. And I'm also pleased to welcome Mete Varas, who is founder of EurAsia PropTech initiative. So hello, Mete, how are you? You're on mute too. You're on mute. Perfect.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So just before you start, just as a reminder, you have the Q&A section that you can, in which you can write your questions. You can start writing your question and your comments. After the 20-25 minutes presentation or talks of Menno and Mete, we will get back to the question and they will answer you. So thank you. I will leave you. I will give you the stage. Enjoy.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Mete.
Hi, Menno. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. So we have a 20 minutes session.
Yes.
Let's use the best out of it.
Yes, we will. We have some sort of dialogue interview prepared and talking about the black, the gray, and the green swans. So looking forward to talk with you about that matter.
True. Well, let's start with the black one. Obviously, we are in the still in the epicenter of the pandemic, and which we could easily call a black swan.
Yes.
And let's start with that one. So how do you? Well, before actually ask you how you see and what's been going on in your territory, but are there any other black swans or are there any other items that you can actually call as the black swan, or the gray and the green? Then we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, black is always hard. They are unpredicted, generally unpredictable events, largely driven by a negative exponential. So they are hard to see because it's, for example, the Spanish flu or the COVID, 9/11, the Great Hack, but also 500 million animals who died in Australia by the bushfire. So those are really hard in that way. The gray swans, they are predicted, but ignored for a long time. So, for example, aging, climate change, and green swans, of course, that's a symbol for radical better times to come. It's a template for exponential change towards a distant goal of sustainable future for all. So it's really changing paradigmas, and it's also a combination of the black and the gray swan. So, when you look at what do I observe in that way? One of the nice things is that the contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals in the Netherlands is growing, so that's a positive one. And also, we are one of the frontiers in circular economy. And there is a big investment fund called InvestNL, and they are focusing on investment or impact investing, and that's focused on energy transition. And of course, there are also other areas to invest in. But yeah, that's I think there are positive developments in that way. And when you look at Europe, and then also going to your side, of course, because I'm also curious about your region. Also in the PropTech startup Scale Up in Europe Awards, the SDGs as a criteria are integrated. So I think that's also a mindset to change and to plant the seed there. And European Commission recently published the taxonomy for sustainable finance. So that also pushed things forward, I think, in the green swan. And how is it in your region, Mete? What do you see in that way?
Well, obviously, everybody is now talking about COVID. I'm not actually going to go into that one too much into detail. We don't have that much anyway. But obviously, it's kind of shocking. I think now the after effects are now beginning to be realized, starting from this month or so. So the first one is obviously action and reaction. Today, I just saw that article on the Wall Street Journal that Zara is closing almost 1,000 stores. Same as 1,200. Almost Starbucks is going to same. So when you look at it, as the people in the PropTech industry for a long time, this is quite expected, honestly, for us. So these are a very typical gray swans, I could call it, because those are the ones that have been neglected for the long time, honestly. Doesn't matter where you are, by the way, whether you're in the US or in Asia. Obviously, each geography is on the different stage of the PropTech revolution or evolution. Well, when you say my territory, I have pretty much can tell you in two areas. One could be the EurAsia PropTech initiative that I started in Istanbul, and another one I actually supposed to launch in March in Dubai, Middle East PropTech initiative. So these two markets are quite it's good as market, as a size. Dubai has done a phenomenal job in what the other cities have done in 100 years. They pretty much did it in 20 years. And Istanbul is quite unique market, even though it's not on too much on the radar in European or in Middle East or Asia. It's always like for Easterns, it's in the West. For Westerns, it's in the East. But it's an interesting market. It's one of the few markets that is Amazon, eBay, Alibaba is operating in the same market. And obviously, the construction industry is huge after China. And the startup ecosystem is quite big. So I prepared a map, and the first one came up was 87 startups. The second version last year we released, it's about 110. So I expect this one will be probably in the next month or so. We will be launching the third version. It will be about 120. But
it's growing in that way. We have around 400, I think, in the Netherlands. But
I know. Well, some of the we'll talk about maybe later on, but some areas are at the end of the day, it's an emerging market, so some categories are quite advanced, ironically, in emerging markets because the problems are different. So I expect in the coming era, let's say, that will be shift to more in the Western markets as well.
Yeah.
But again, if you talk about um, the green swans, then I'll ask you back to another question.
Yeah.
How do you think that you actually mentioned about a couple topics on this green swans, how we can actually leverage that in the coming year? By the way, it's a natural path. So just like the trends that we call it great swans has been neglected. Now the green swans are now have been showing us some signals. However, there are obviously some obstacles to become mainstream and become everyone's topic. How do you think that that will actually change? Will that change, first of all? And what will be the obstacles that you think is blocking right now?
The green swans, of course, it's exponential. So, for example, the green bonds or the Denmark green transition or the plant-based alternatives for eggs and fish and meat. So it's. I think it starts with an awareness of a sustainable mindset, and sustainability is, most of the time we talk about sustainability and it's about energy reduction or CO2. But if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, that's totally different. That's more holistic in that way. And the biggest obstacle, I think, is awareness, because most of the time when I talk to people and I talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, they talk about sustainability. So that's a part of awareness and a mindset, a mind shift. And on the other hand, of course, it's scaling up, but that's in general. When you look at PropTech, we can do a lot of pilots, experiments, but really scaling up with the whole portfolio, that's always challenging, because then it's not a department issue anymore, but then it's going to get to be an organization issue and a strategy issue. So that's the hard part. In general, I think it's you see people are changing. They see we don't want to act the way we already did, like the last years, hyper growth, and of course they want that. At the other hand, they see we have to change. Also for the COVID, more connected with nature, more the social connections, the communities. So it's also great to see that the Business Roundtable with 200 leading CEOs said, "Hey, we have to change the definition of a company." It's not about the shareholder, but it's about stakeholders. So it's also aligned with the ESG, the environmental, society, and government reporting and investing side. So I'm very hopeful, but it will be tough also for the next years, I think. How do you see that? What do you see in your region? Do you see the same obstacles?
In fact, your question is actually one of the topic, because you specifically said, how do you see in your region? Because that's one of the challenges.
Yeah.
First of all, because there has to be a unity, global partnership ecosystem, which is missing. And I remember the CEO roundtable that you mentioned. I remember the one night I was actually reading that news, and I was surprised because it's not actually became like a topic that has been talked and discussed on main media, let's say it. So it's quite surprising. It's like somewhere in the little link that I found, I don't know, maybe accidentally, but it's a big news in fact,
Yeah.
because they changed the mentality. Usually these kind of changes happen with either you have the award or you have the stick. So
Yeah.
in that case, the mentality or the mindset you mentioned will be the main driver, I believe. And this caricature has been on internet that your digital transformation officer is COVID. So
Yeah.
most of the things, what I call is like the Back to the Future movie, because most of the things that we've been talking about and for years, on like 10 years, now it's nice to have to must have.
Yeah. True.
Now that's one side, and the other side, some of the stuff that has been used by early adopters are now going to be accelerated, and the pandemic will, just like everybody says, the main catalyst for change.
Yeah.
So,
But what kind of solutions do we have? Would you like to see on the marketplace to create future-proof environments for everyone? Because we make that change, but I think we can. Yeah, there has to be some solutions or activities so we can accelerate that movement much more.
well, true. I think it starts with well, I'm from came from a serious entrepreneurship. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so whatever I see as a problem, it's also an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at it, I believe that it's a chain reaction. So the yes, entrepreneurs see that as an opportunity, come up with a solution. Obviously, it needs to be funded.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be self-funded. So the parties. So I'm talking about the whole ecosystem. So the parties who are actually financing the solution will actually favor these kind of solutions. So
Yeah.
they will see the result and the end game, not purely on on numbers, but the other sustainability issues or ESG, because the outcome will be multiplier
Yeah.
than the pure shareholder focused solutions.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I can agree, because, for example, if you invest €1 or $1 for a tree, you get almost 6 back. So it's about the tree has so much impact in that way in our environment, for noise cancelling, for toxic stuff in the air, the whole pollution stuff. So it's another way of thinking. For me, I think it's three things. One is more the vested partnerships. It's another way of thinking. It's not about the transaction, but more on how to help each other to grow. So that's it's a business model and methodology. I think that really can help. Also putting the SDGs into tenders, or to make it a criteria. And of course, the growth of the increase of impact investing and ESG. You see that growing ESG companies are performing better. So it's also great to see initiatives like Women in PropTech. They also have an impact on the SDGs, and also on another mindset. I know that Reach UK is working on a program also focusing more on this line, and I think the more plans we see, the better it is. And we have to move on in that way.
Sure, sure.
My last question to you. We don't have a glass bulb, of course, but it's always great to have a perspective. What do you think that the real estate industry will change in the next 3 years in your region? How does it change?
$1 million question. Well, I think it will only accelerate, honestly, to a new reality. And reality is that the real estate will be, less about concrete. You know what I mean?
The bricks and mortar.
More like less, physical and more digital in a sense. And I expect that there will be more access economy, circular economy will take a better role, a bigger role. It will be largely API based system.
Yeah.
I also expect that the real data economy will start to establish. What I mean by data economy is that right now we are sort of like only the, except the, couple very, advanced examples. We're just getting the data, and then we need to, create that data economy, and it will become like a source of income as well. So right now, the investors will obviously collect, monthly rents, and they will in the future, I believe, will also collect not rent, but a source, another source of income from the buildings that they own and operate or manage, either or. And what do you think that happen that we will see in Netherlands and in the
I expect a mind shift, because in that way it's more from a nice to have to a need to have. It's growing, so I think that's good. Urban greenery, more green on the rooftops, more, but also I think that's also the connection which you talked about, and a building as an energy creator, so they can also get other business models. And I also expect a new landscape, it's mergers and acquisitions, I think, for the next years, also new ventures, and also with the SDGs as the North Star for those companies. So I'm optimistic in that way. Of course, it will be challenging times the next years, the next 3 years, but I'm optimistic. And last but not least, it's also a social thing, is that we're going to decode the workplace, other ways of working together, collaboration, and yeah, that's what I'm expecting for the next year. It will be great times, challenging, but yeah, looking forward.
True. Well, each topic that we discussed, deserve another webinar. They're all, a different title. What we talk about might sound, conceptual to the participants. I hope it's not, but again, a lot of things have been discussed already. So I actually didn't want to go and dig the workspace, how it's going to change, or retail, which I'm quite fascinated. We'll continue change drastically in the next 5 years or so. Yeah. So I see Sophie. I guess our time is up.
Thank you. As you said, Mete, We can keep on having for each topic you raised today at least 20 minutes for starting the conversation.
We're just warming up.
But I just want to keep a few minutes for question. It's always important for the audience and great opportunity for the audience to interact. And actually, we have one first question, which is, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities in the current climate? Just if you had to mention, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 biggest challenges and or opportunities, what would that be?
Well, I can talk about the match with the territory. I guess that will be one of them. I would say is the 3D printing. Dubai, one thing that the UAE is quite good at is the regulation. So they are quite aggressive and quite, future focused, I must say. And they came up with one of them is actually they already point out is the 3D printing. So they have a mandate saying that by 2030, almost all buildings, if I'm not mistaken, government buildings at least, will be printed. So already we've seen a lot of examples and use cases on the ground. So that will actually continue in the region. Again, a lot of things that will obviously change in the coming years, not even months, because the future of work, future of retail, as we've been talking about, that will obviously have a drastic effects on both in UAE and in Istanbul, in Turkey. Again, these are, yes, challenges, but these are again both and opportunities.
And you, Menno, you see the same from a European standpoint? Interesting to see also, to notice the differences sometimes between the two.
Yeah, I know in the Middle East and especially Dubai, they are very focused on 3D printing. I see that we also do that in the Netherlands, for example, but it's not really a topic at the moment. It was on the hype cycle, I think, but it will come back. The biggest challenge at the moment is that a lot of big companies put their hand on their wallet, so on the money, take care of their core business, and some say, yeah, we are going totally digital and we really want to invest. At the other hand, they say, no, we're going to sit on our money and wait and sit and wait and sit and wait and sit and doing nothing, and we see what's happening in the economy. So that will be really challenging, and of course an opportunity I think is to find another way to implement your solutions on a digital way. But for example, sensors in a building, yeah, you have the opportunity to do it now because nobody is in the building. But if no one comes to the building, because I know big companies and especially US companies, they don't want to fly the next year, they don't want to go to the office the next month. So that, yeah, that will be a hard one.
Maybe last, sorry, Mete, go ahead if you want
just
to.
Just one addition. Another, let's say, opportunity coming out of the crisis, basically, is the cloud or ghost supermarkets. Turkey is quite an interesting market for that, and we have quite an interesting, not even one, but competing 1 or 3 with different business models, and they basically boomed. As you can all imagine, during COVID, during the lockdown. I expect that, and that we've seen similar ones in far in Asia, in Indonesia and kind of places. So I expect them to go to Europe in the coming years. It's like convenience store, and they deliver it under 10 minutes. So it's quite impressive, and it's been obviously the consumer habits are changing, and probably this COVID is the best thing they will ever dreamed of.
Okay, interesting. So we will look forward to having that in Europe. Just a last question, very last one. How do you think? Who do you think needs to be involved in to impulse the changes? I mean, we have these corporate changes in mindset, in business models, etc. Do you think? My point is: do you think that the public, representatives, governments, the legal frame they have, needs to be part of that? Needs to be the lead into that? Do we need to, just a question, do we need, as you said, Menno, now the big corporates, have their hand on their wallets, and we can understand, so keep an eye on the budget and expenses. So what is the role of the public authorities into that, to support them and maybe accelerate the change of mindset, business models, opportunities, etc.?
Yeah, the public, if you mean the government, in that way, the government can play a role to push that in general, also by supporting, to say, hey, you get money, we support you, but you have to go on a sustainable way. Or we will help you. We'll help you to survive. That's a big discussion I know in the Netherlands. The government is helping KLM, for example, the flying company, the airplanes. Yeah, but how about sustainability or something like that?
I mean, they have their strengths to implement, legislations to. For companies to be more sustainable. We see that also in urban developments. The cities, the regions are totally part of the part of the discussions. They need to be part of that. So
I
think Mete maybe in your region, because that's maybe a very European standpoint, to ask a lot from public authorities. Is that the same in?
Well, I guess I mentioned what I actually tried to mention is that one specifically for Dubai, because Singapore, Dubai, this topic that the city countries are going to be much more flexible and advanced, because they can actually act faster than the other countries. That might think, but on the other hand, we've said, I don't want to go into politics, but we've been seeing a lot of demonstrations in US and stuff, so that yes, public demands something, and then they try to get something, but it's too little and too nothing is easy, obviously, but the institutions are on the other hand are like weakening. So if you have countries with populist leaders, so they try to do something else. So, but again, coming back to PropTech and our discussions, I think if you set up the system, yes, the government has a big role, whatever it is, just like Menno mentioned that if that's, I guess, Austrian Airlines, when they try to save the airline, they put some KPIs, ESG KPIs. So that's one thing. So you can include anything on any issue, diversity, the digital transformation, whatever it is. It could be solved.
It could be a
quite
big
easy.
game changer in that way. Also the UN Green Deal, for example, they bring in a lot of money and they can earn money, so that really can be a green swan in that way. I know years ago the government and then especially the building department said label C will be the minimum. So everybody has to go to label C or more or better. So they can really make, they can position themselves and push things forward. On the other hand, and that's also the hard one at the moment, companies have a mission and they want to be doing good and better planet, blah, blah, blah. And then you ask them, hey, what have you done on that project? We did this and that. But that was the thing our client, our customer asked, but we can do more, but we didn't because they didn't pay for that. So we can do more, but we don't do it because of the incentives. And we have to find a way to break through that mindset, I think. Because we can do more. Our potential is bigger than where they hired us for, I think.
Yeah, but well, the public demands it. For instance, we did a questionnaire in the beginning of the pandemic about we asked questions to employees and how they see it, what they should do, what companies should do, what office buildings and operators should do. So most of the answers, actually, we had the open-ended questions. What is it that your company should provide? That question. I guess the question get the most answers, and most of them ask for psychological and mental help, and that actually aligns with the trend, because that's a trend that we see a lot of companies, startups, whether it's an app or whether it's a sensor-based solution, trying to come up with an answer to this problem. So here you go. So you have the public demands it, and then there are startups trying to solve that problem. Yeah. And obviously, investors are not blind, so they will see that as well, because it's from bottom up, not top down.
Great. So guys, that's the end of the session, but that's not the end of the conversation. I can feel that we can stay like hours.
Okay.
So just want to thank you to initiate or to open the conversation to everyone. For sure, they can contact you to keep on having a discussion on these topics and bringing ideas. So thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you, Sophie.
You're going to be able to travel and to join us in Paris on September 14 and 15 for Propel in Paris. I really hope that. And I would thank to everyone that stayed until the end. So thank you. Really interesting. And I would say see you tomorrow, same time. So 4 p.m. Paris time for the Frenchy Friday. So the last daily talks of the week, which is dedicated to French game changers. So session in French. If you speak French, you're welcome to connect tomorrow. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.